on, guys? I wanted to talk to you a little bit in this episode about something different. I want to talk to you about understanding the world of publishing and how to get your own stuff out there. Now, this will be a different series, and we're going to cover kind of how you can start getting your own stuff into the mix, getting your work in front of editors, and move forward here. But we're going to start with the big picture about what's going on in literary publishing and poetry publishing, in particular in the US. So let's start out with some basics here. Why do people want to publish, right? What's the point? Why bother? Well, I would say if you look at things from like an internal or like your own motivation perspective, and when you're trying to submit your stuff, you're trying to send your stuff out, you're trying to get yourself in print, that active engagement in the publishing process is a critical component to your own growth, right? So if you're just writing stuff in your journal or writing poems for friends, it's not really the same stimulus you get when you start putting yourself out there and taking that risk, right? And I don't think literature is really created alone. I think the culture of literature ultimately is a collaboration, student to teacher, reader and writer, writer and editor, colleague to colleague, generation to generation. So I think those are all good things. And I also think there's a flip side of that coin, right? So in addition to those intrinsic motivations people have, I think there's another extrinsic motivation. People want to publish poems because they want to build their career. And ain't nothing wrong with that. It's just, if you want to become a professor and teach creative writing and teach poetry, you got to hustle, right? You got to publish your poems in good journals. And if you publish enough poems in good journals, and you can go and you can get a book out in at a good press, and from there you're going to try to move on, see if you can get a job, you can get a gig. But that's kind of unlikely, right? Less than 1%, which is kind of one of those odd numbers today, of MFAs are employed in academic teaching jobs. So there's a lot of people out there hustling, trying to get their poetry into print, but not a lot of them are going to make it all the way. It's just how it is. It's the supply and demand. There's a super abundance. There's never been more places to publish, more small web journals, more print journals, more places with, they have like just a handful of readers coming by their website. But at the top of the pyramid here, there's just extreme scarcity. If you want to publish your poem at a place with large readerships, there's never been more competition to get in there than there is today. It's extremely fierce. Duotrope.com, which is a great resource for looking for places to publish your poetry, they are listing about 4,000 poetry and 5,000 fiction markets. I would say, if you go and just peek in, you're going to find 300 to 400 places active that they vetted where you could publish your poetry today. And that's in print, where they'll put you in print. That's huge. That's just insane, right? Now, not all these places are the same quality, and objectively, the quality of a journal is just, you could just say, well, how many people is it reaching? I mean, if a journal is not able to reach anyone, if it's doesn't have quality circulation, it's probably not as impactful. But if it has a huge circulation, but it's Reader's Digest, it's maybe not the same as the Paris Review, right? So circulation matters, but so does the people who are being published. I think bad writing often appears in good journals, and good writing is often found in lesser known journals. Sometimes you find little seemingly out of the way places which have, former poet laureates being published there. It happens. And sometimes those little journals, they punch way, way over their weight class. So that doesn't mean it's easy to get in anywhere, right? If you look at a place like Rattle, they read blind, which not every journal does, and we can talk about that a little bit more later on. But Rattle receives 40,000 submissions a year. So, they publish less than 1%, a fraction of 1% of the poems they receive. So even if you're good, even if your stuff is tight, it's going to be hard, and it's just how it is. They're just overwhelmed, right? So I want you to try to get the most out of your experience, no matter where you are in that process. And I want you to adjust your beliefs and adjust your mentality and the way you think about yourself and the way you think about your writing, so that you're not holding yourself back. A lot of people, when they start the process or really anywhere in the process, they say, well, I'm not sure if my writing's good enough. And I'm here to tell you, if you have to know if your writing's good, then you probably shouldn't submit, because sending your stuff out is a poor way to find that out, right? These editors make mistakes. They're not perfect, right? You have to say, I do my job, and then I send my work out, and try to be true to yourself. You might think to yourself, well, my writing is out of fashion, right? I write stuff either about topics or, in a style that isn't in today, so people never publish it. Well, if you spend your time trying to chase the latest fashion, right, that's not going to work either, right? Maybe your stuff is out of fashion. Maybe that's true. But you have to be, again, true to your art. And you have to hope that what you're doing stands out because of how you do it, and not make excuses for yourself. The other thing I hear all the time is, well, you need connections to publish. And, well, I mean, sure, that'd be great, right, to have connections. But all the places I've been published, I didn't know anyone there until, they received my submission. And sure, it'd be great if I had a famous name or something like that, or I knew a ton of famous, important people, but it doesn't help as much as you think it would. Sure, eventually, once you're an established poet and, everybody's heard of you, that's fantastic. But everybody more or less starts in the same place, which is nobody's heard of you, nobody cares, and nobody wants another, pile of poems in the slush pile. But it's tough, but don't be discouraged. Everybody's been there. Everybody starts there. The last thing that a lot of people say is, well, you need to have thick skin in order to send stuff out because you're going to get all these rejections. I just think that's stupid, right? Rejection hurts, whether you've published a whole bunch of poems or whether you've never published a poem. I don't care who you are, whether you're Nobel laureate or whether you're nobody. When someone says no and is like, I don't want, do not want, it sucks. It always hurts. It never stops hurting. So I could say to you, yeah, get used to it. You need to toughen up. But I could also say, okay, use that experience, right? So when you get rejected and when a poem doesn't get accepted, stay with that feeling and stay centered. Remind yourself the poem didn't change through the process of submitting it, either for the better or for worse. And you have to stick to the plan, right? If you said, I'm going to start sending stuff out and I'm going to be consistent and work on this every week or every month or whatever, don't change your plan because someone rejected you. It's like Mike Tyson's like, everybody has a plan to get punched in the face. Okay, well, yeah, you're going to get punched in the face, right? And it's going to hurt. It's not going to feel good. There's no way to be tough enough that you can just take punches to the face from the Mike Tysons of the world, from these literary editors, from these big names who don't care who you are. They're going to reject you, right? Everyone's got to go through that. But stick with your game plan. Keep hustling. Keep working. Keep making adjustments. Keep trying stuff. And what I'm here to tell you guys in this first video about this whole process is submission's a skill, right? You learn through doing it, right? As you submit more, as you learn more about who's out there and who's publishing what, and all the little websites and all the little magazines and all, all the big names too, all the poetry magazines and Paris reviews and Georgia reviews or whatever. You learn about who's big and who's doing what, and the little people doing special things too. And you learn about how to communicate with editors, how long it takes before things come back. You learn about cover letters, and we can talk about that too. But you'll tailor and refine your process as you grow. So let your submission process grow along with you as a writer, right? And try submitting everywhere. A lot of people are like, well, you shouldn't submit to this place or that place until you've done this or that. And it's like, just submit where you want. You start getting your feet wet and start learning. I mean, all they can do is say no, right? And that's not a big deal. Ultimately, it hurts, but it's not such a big deal. So I think this trap that all writers fall into, including me, right? Everybody thinks this. I'm not a real writer. I'm not a real poet unless I get published here, unless they give me permission to be a writer. And you got to avoid that thinking. You got to tell yourself, I'm a poet, I'm a writer. It's part of the darn job to do this. And whether people accept my work now or accept it later or never accept it, I'm going to keep doing what I do. I'm going to keep writing, keep revising, keep submitting, keep trying. Keep your head up out there. It is crazy. And next episode, we'll get into the process in more specifics. But let me know if you have questions about it, and we can get into some of that stuff together. I'd love to hear where you're at and what you're working on, and jump that in the comments. Let me know, hey, here's something that really confuses me about it. I don't understand simultaneous submissions, or I don't understand what I should put in my cover letter. Hit me up and we'll get there, guys. Cool. Thanks for joining me.